My parents sided with my lying sister, who blamed me for her crime and cut me off completely. Now, 6 years later, they're furious I didn't invite them to my wedding. I'm 26, male. Growing up, I thought my family was pretty ordinary. My father worked at a local manufacturing plant, my mother ran a small catering service, and I spent most weekends either playing video games or helping around the house. My younger sister, just a year behind me, and I were once inseparable. But 6 years ago, everything changed when she pinned her own crime on me. It started with some thefts happening at a friend's house party. Electronics went missing, phones, a tablet, a couple of pricey gadgets. The next morning, my sister confronted me in front of our father and mother, screaming that she saw me sneaking out of a room with some of these items. I tried to defend myself, insisting I had nothing to do with it. But my sister teared up dramatically, telling them she caught me red-handed. My parents believed her. After all, she was the baby girl, the one who supposedly never lied. I, on the other hand, found myself painted as a common thief. It didn't matter that I had an alibi from a couple of friends. When the family confronted me, my father barked, "Are you calling your sister a liar?" My mother looked at me with utter disappointment. It was surreal. They demanded that I return the stolen items, which of course I didn't have, so I ended up with no way to prove my innocence. The arguments spiraled out of control. My sister kept doubling down, giving elaborate details about how she saw me rummaging through coats and purses. By the end of the night, I was essentially disowned unless I confessed. I refused to lie and admit to a crime I didn't commit. Furious, my parents kicked me out. I remember my father pointing toward the door, face red with anger. "Pack your things and go. If you can't own up, you're no son of mine." My sister stood by, arms folded, watching the scene unfold without a hint of remorse. Over the next few months, I couch-surfed at different friends' places. The story spread through town, with half the people whispering about me being a thief. My father and mother told relatives they had no choice but to cut me off for the sake of family integrity. Meanwhile, the real culprit, my sister, walked away scot-free, basking in the sympathy of neighbors who pitied her for having a criminal brother. She never once confessed or tried to set the record straight. Eventually, I saved enough money working odd jobs to rent a tiny studio apartment a few towns over. It wasn't glamorous, but it was my space, free from accusations and drama. Slowly, I rebuilt my life. I got a stable job, made new friends who didn't look at me like I was a criminal. I didn't hear much from my parents. Now and then, I'd get a text from an aunt or uncle urging me to apologize and come home, but I refused. I wasn't going to grovel for something I never did. That was 6 years ago. Since then, I've managed to carve out a decent life, found someone I love, and moved forward. But it turns out that ghost from the past wasn't quite done haunting me, because, as I recently discovered, my parents are furious they weren't invited to my wedding. The same parents who disowned me over my sister's lies now believe they deserve a front row seat at my happiest day. A few months ago, I announced my engagement to my fiancée, a warm and funny woman I'd met through a mutual friend. We decided to keep our wedding list small. Close friends, some supportive extended relatives, and people who'd stood by us. My parents and sister never crossed my mind as potential invitees. After all, I'd spent the last 6 years with zero support from them. Why would I invite the same people who cast me out? Word got around through social media when we posted our engagement photos. That's when I received a flurry of messages from relatives, some of whom I hadn't heard from since the accusations. A cousin wrote me, "Your father says he's disappointed you haven't invited him. He wants to reconcile." Another message from an uncle said, "You should at least let them come. They're family." I felt my jaw tighten as I read these. Where was this rush to reconcile when I was homeless, labeled a thief? Where was the concern when I needed help to prove my innocence? Now that I'd built a life and was celebrating a milestone, they acted offended for not being in the loop. Still, part of me felt a sting of guilt. Could it be that I was being too harsh? My fiancé, ever the calm voice of reason, suggested, if they truly want to make amends, they'd start with an apology. Have they apologized? Of course they hadn't. Instead, they escalated their sense of entitlement. A week later, an aunt forwarded me a text from my mother. We deserve an invitation. He needs to stop acting like a victim. That message burned into my brain. After all this time, no apologies, no admission of wrongdoing. Only demands. My father even threatened to show up anyway if I didn't send them official invites. He bragged about how he helped raise me. So how could I exclude him from something so significant? The nerve of it was astounding. My sister, the root cause of the entire meltdown, also tried to reach out, leaving me a voicemail dripping with insincere charm. Hey, long time no talk. Heard you're getting married. Let me know if you need family there. She conveniently ignored the fact that her false accusation destroyed my reputation and forced me out of my home. I briefly toyed with the idea of hearing them out, until I stumbled upon an old note my father had written me years ago after the incident. We don't want your excuses. You brought shame to this family. Don't come back. Rereading that shredded any lingering guilt. They chose their side. They chose to believe my sister's lies over me, and they made no effort to fix it. Even so, tensions grew within the extended family. Some called me childish, claiming I was holding a grudge. Others supported my decision, having never believed my sister's story in the first place. My fiancé and I pressed forward with wedding plans, determined not to let the drama overshadow our joy. But I could sense the storm brewing, a final showdown that would force me to confront my parents and sister once and for all. The confrontation arrived sooner than I expected. One Saturday afternoon, as my fiancé and I were finalizing the seating chart with our wedding planner, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a mutual friend, warning me that my parents were on the way to my apartment, uninvited. My fiancé and I exchanged looks, bracing ourselves. Sure enough, they showed up. My father knocked on the door insistently, and when I opened it, Mother stood beside him, arms folded. Behind them, my sister lingered in the hallway, trying to look innocent. They pushed past me into the living room before I could stop them. Let's cut the nonsense, my father said, voice booming. We're your family. We have a right to see you get married. My mother nodded fervently. We raised you. This is a slap in the face. My sister chimed in with a pout. I've missed you. Can we stop fighting? I almost laughed at the absurdity. The tension was thick enough to slice with a knife. My fiancée stepped closer, gently resting a hand on my arm. She whispered, I'm right here with you. That gave me the strength to stand firm. You kicked me out for something I didn't do, I stated, keeping my voice level. You believed her lies. I pointed toward my sister and made no effort to hear my side. Where's family loyalty then? My father looked rattled. We did what we thought was right. You refused to apologize. I shook my head in disbelief. Apologize for a crime I never committed? My mother hissed. Your sister wouldn't lie about something like that. My sister shot me a pleading look as though trying to feign remorse, but I remembered all too well how easily she spun that story. I took a deep breath. You ruined my life back then. I was homeless, jobless, labeled a thief. If I hadn't managed to find help from friends, who knows where I'd be? My father tried to interrupt, but I kept going. Now you want me to pretend none of that happened because I'm getting married? You believe you have the right to attend? No, not happening. My sister stepped forward, tears brimming. I was just a kid back then. I made a mistake. You can't hold that over me forever. She attempted to reach out, but I stepped back. A mistake you never owned up to. You let me face all those consequences alone. My mother slammed her hand on the back of the couch. We are your parents. We brought you into this world. Her voice quivered with anger or maybe guilt. My father glared, face reddening. We'll talk to the rest of the family about this. You're choosing to humiliate us. I felt a surge of anger and, strangely, confidence. I'm just standing up for myself. You're the ones who humiliated me for something I didn't do. Then I added the final blow. If you try to crash the wedding, we'll have security remove you. That's not a threat. It's a promise. Silence hung in the air. My parents looked stunned, as if they'd never imagined I'd talk back to them like this. My sister's tears turned into an angry glare. She muttered under her breath, "This is so unfair," as if she was the victim. Without another word, my father stormed toward the door, mother and sister trailing behind. Before leaving, father spat, "You'll regret this." Then the doors slammed, and they were gone. Over the next few days, the fallout was immediate. Certain relatives bombarded me with calls, urging me to just let them attend. Others, who knew the truth, quietly supported my decision, saying I owed them nothing. My father apparently threatened to call the venue and say I was disowning the family, hoping the manager might intervene. It was a foolish bluff. The venue had no reason to meddle in personal disputes. My fiancée and I pressed on, determined not to let this drama overshadow our big day. The wedding day arrived, a simple, heartfelt ceremony in a cozy garden setting. My friends, supportive relatives, and her family gathered to celebrate. We exchanged vows, tears of joy in our eyes, and stepped into a new chapter of life together. Not once during the ceremony did I glance over my shoulder, fearing a gate-crashing incident. We had a couple of trusted friends watching the perimeter, just in case, but my parents and sister never showed. They must have realized I was serious about security. Instead, they spent the evening calling and texting family members, complaining about how I'd betrayed them. Word spread that mother was inconsolable, father was livid, and my sister was playing the part of the misunderstood sibling once again. However, none of that drama intruded on our wedding bliss. When the reception ended, my wife and I left for our honeymoon, a sense of peace washing over us. For once, I felt free, no guilt, no second-guessing. I'd stood my ground, refused to let my parents' entitlement overshadow the truth, and I'd honored my own mental well-being. Now, a few weeks later, I hear from mutual contacts that my parents are still furious and humiliated. They rant to anyone who'll listen about my disrespect, ignoring the 6 years they left me in the dust. My sister apparently still denies any wrongdoing, insisting it was all a misunderstanding. But as far as I'm concerned, they made their choices years ago. I have no interest in rewriting history for their comfort.